Hello creative photographers, and welcome to this tutorial where you will discover how to capture the crazy colors and fleeting beauty found in a flat film of bubbles. Now, bubbles may seem like an easy thing to photograph, but this is actually one of the harder techniques I've tried. So I don't recommend attempting this project unless you're more advanced and are comfortable with manual focusing and using speedlights and modifiers, or you'll only be disappointed. So first things first, set up a table in the middle of a dark room, such as a garage. You can pop up a black backdrop in the background if you have distractions behind, but if you're far enough away, you shouldn't need to. A macro lens is necessary for this technique to be able to capture the small details of the bubbles. So pop this on your camera and set it up on a tripod. Now, because bubbles are clear, to be able to catch the colourful details, they need to be reflecting your light source, which means they'll need to be lit from directly front on. And that's the difficulty, because your camera and light are going to be fighting for ideal position. You'll also need a modifier large enough to reflect in the whole bubble to create the sheen that allows us to see the colourful details, but small enough to get your camera in close too. I first started with my Canon Speedlite in a Godox 32-inch square softbox, but this was too large. So I tried swapping to my smaller 26-inch Westcott Rapid box and had much better success. Now, I'm not saying you necessarily need this exact modifier because it's expensive and clunky, so I rarely use it. But something around this size or smaller will be ideal. Otherwise, you'll get shots that look like this. I also liked the umbrella-like shape of the Rapid box because it allowed me to get that little bit closer than I could with a square-shaped modifier. Can you see why this is such a tricky technique? Once you've chosen a modifier to fit the brief, you'll then need to set up your flash and modifier on a stand with a way to trigger the light from the camera. We'll talk about the exact setup shortly. Next, we'll create a structure to hold our bubble. So I used a simple egg ring, or you could also use a round-shaped cookie cutter, and wrap this in a length of fabric rope, leaving some extra at the end to be able to suspend the ring. Now, the theory behind this fabric is that it jostles the bubble mixture around to keep the colours moving. To be honest, I suspect this wasn't absolutely necessary, but my research suggested that this was the best way to do it. What this does help with, though, is to prevent the light from reflecting off the metal of your egg ring. Once this is done, you'll need some way to suspend this in the air. I used half a backdrop stand, so just one stand and one part of the crossbar. I tied my ring to this with about 15 centimeters of length, and then wrapped any remaining string around the screw holding the crossbar on. This does mean your egg ring will swing around, which isn't the worst thing, but if it bothers you, you could try using wire to affix it to something instead. If you can't find something to suspend your egg ring, you can also try using one of these helping hands devices. But I couldn't find an easy way to fill the ring with bubble mixture and then reposition it correctly with the lighting each time. That also didn't create a sticky mess. Now we'll prepare the bubble mixture. For this, I highly recommend using a tall, thin container, just large enough to fit your egg ring in, and I'll show you why later on. There are all sorts of different recipes to create ideal bubbles, depending on what you want to achieve with them. But I used a very basic mixture for more long-lasting bubbles. That was 1 cup of water, 4 tablespoons of dishwashing liquid, and 3 tablespoons of glycerin, or if you can't find that, corn syrup works too. If that's not enough to fill your container, just double or triple this base mixture. And finally, you are going to need to have a straw on hand. So now we are ready to shoot. First up, you're going to want to spend some time getting the lighting right. I had my Speedlite set to full power and positioned it about 30 centimeters away from the egg ring, directly in front. I then squeezed my camera in as close to the side as possible with the camera settings 1/125th of a second, f/18 and ISO 200. The reason for such a high aperture is because when your camera is slightly angled instead of directly on, this creates an uneven plane where you'll need this higher aperture to keep as much in focus as you can. And even then, it's not always successful. Now, what we're aiming to achieve is to get the bubble mixture completely lit with white light. To test this, we need to get a bubble in your ring. So grab your bubble container and lift it up to dunk the ring inside. Then place the container directly underneath to catch any liquid that drips off. If you have any dark spots, this may mean that your camera is too close and is reflecting on the bubble, or the modifier isn't positioned in the right spot. So it may take a little bit of time, patience, and adjusting to get this right. Then, the closer you can get the camera to the bubble wand, the better the detail you'll capture, provided it's not too close to be able to focus. When you've got the lighting right, let's talk about focus. So after soaking your ring in bubble mixture, it's probably going to swing for a bit. The good news is bubbles are slow to develop because if you photograph it now, it's going to look like this, mostly white. As the bubbles develop, lines of colour start to travel down from the top. And it's not until these lines get to about halfway that it becomes time to photograph. Now, when you've dipped the ring in, it will likely be lined with smaller bubble residue. So let the egg ring settle, and once it does, you'll need to use back button focus to focus on the very furthest bubbles you can see, as these will be up against the film of the bubble. Then you'll want to reframe your image to try and crop out as much of the ring as you can. Shifting your focus like this may also set your focus slightly off, but we're going to fix that in a sec. Next, what I suggest doing is taking a test shot and then zooming in to the shot to check that the focus is okay. It should look pretty good. By now, the line of colour should be in about the middle of the ring. So we need to start agitating the colours to get some more interesting things going on. So to do this, you are going to grab the straw and gently blow the bubble so that the mixture swirls around. You should be able to see when it looks interesting so that you know when it's time to shoot. The other thing this does is creates little floaters. So if you want to refine your focus further, I now suggest manually twisting your focus ring or rocking your body until those floaters look well focused. Then you'll keep blowing and shooting until all the colours drop to the bottom and start to look less interesting, or until the bubble pops. And then it's just a matter of repeating the process. Try and shoot as often as possible. But as I was using my Canon Speedlite, which is not my favourite, it was slow to recycle and fast to overheat, so I could only take a couple of shots per bubble. I also tried holding the ring at the base occasionally, so I could give it a little shake to agitate the mixture. Just for the sake of testing, I also tried using this unwrapped star-shaped cookie cutter. I wanted the camera further away to be able to capture the whole star shape, but this also revealed more of the background, which is where you might then use a black backdrop. Simple, right? Now, if you'd like to try some easier bubble projects, then this month inside Photo Fanatics, we are exploring how to capture bubble planets and bursting bubbles, as well as freezing flour, incense smoke, and incremental movement. Tons of fun! But if you'd prefer to stick to my free tutorials, then give this one a go. And if you manage to nail something impressive, please come show me in my Facebook group. Otherwise, see you next time and happy creating!